What's going on, guys? Welcome back. Happy New Year. And today we are talking about the big red mean machine right here. That's right. We are going to talk about my Honda CB500F. It's been about 9 months and more or less 3,000 miles since I first got this bike. This is my first ever motorcycle. So I figured it's been a long enough time. Why not give you guys a little video on my thoughts and impressions. I'll give you guys a list of 5 pros and 5 cons with this motorcycle. And yeah, hopefully this is informative for anyone out there that's considering a CB500F, no matter your reason, whether you're a new rider, whether you're an older rider looking to get back into riding, a second bike, whatever the reason may be. Hopefully this is informative and hopefully this helps you out. So, why did I get this 2017 Honda CB500F? Well, it's about April or May of 2024. I had just passed my MSF and I just got my motorcycle endorsement. And super excited, ready to get my first bike. So I jumped straight to the Facebook Marketplace. I wanted secondhand, I wanted used because I don't want to start on a new motorcycle learn on a new motorcycle, burn the clutch, drop it, whatever. I just wanted something secondhand. This one it already had a couple of things on it, the scratches when I picked it up, so perfect. And yeah, and I did a little bit of research on it, and the CB500F, or any of the 500 Honda family, it's the CB500F, the CBR 500R, and then I believe the CB500X, which is now, I think, the NX500 or something like that. All of those same Hondas in the same family line, the same family lineage, are very highly recommended, especially for newer riders. Great gas mileage, very easy to learn on, very, very forgiving bikes. So that's a quick overview, that's a quick history of me and this bike. Now I'm going to run into the 5 pros and 5 cons of the 2017 Honda CB500F. Alright guys, so we're going to start with the pros first. Pro number 1, and this is subjective, but for me it's the looks. Especially in this red and black colorway. I mean, I think I honestly lucked out because I think this is the best colorway for the CB500F. I much prefer this over black or simple white. This thing really does pop out, especially when it's nice, a beautiful day like today and there's a lot of sun. So I think it looks good. It definitely looks very sporty. To the average person, they're going to think it's, they wouldn't be able to tell the difference between this and a Ducati Street Fighter. Obviously, for people watching this channel or people that know motorcycles, obviously there's a big difference. But the way it looks, it definitely gets people's attention. Number 2 on the list of pros is it gets a very good fuel economy. The 471cc Honda Parallel Twin is very frugal when it comes to gas. This thing gets great gas mileage. You easily can do over 200 miles on a single tank. And speaking of tank, the tank is big. It's 4.4 gallons, I believe, which is fairly large. Definitely probably the leader in its class, that's for sure. So between a fuel efficient engine and a big tank, you can go a long ways away without having to stop for fill-ups. So number 3 on the list of pros is the way the engine makes power. Now, this is both on the pros list and the cons list, but we'll start with the pro first and we'll get to the con of the engine in a little bit. So this is a parallel twin. Parallel twins, typically, they're good at making power at lower RPMs. And it's great for just moving around town. You don't have to rev up the bike to get going. I can let out that clutch, slowly, of course, without giving any gas, and eventually fully let it out. And it's just happily putting along, sitting at idle. So it's really good. It's really, tractable. So yeah, and that makes it great for beginners because as a beginner, you're worried about your clutch, engagement. You're worried about throttle. You're worried about bouncing and not falling. You're worried about turning the bike. You're worried about turning your head. As a beginner, there's a lot of things you're thinking about at the same time that is completely foreign to you. So If you could take one of those things off the list, i.e., how much power to give the bike, it makes it easier to learn on for sure. So, yeah, I think the engine is really beginner friendly. With the low down power, it feels like it feels like it has power when you get on it in the lower RPMs. It moves. So yeah, that's number 3 on the list is the way this Honda Parallel Twin makes power. Number 4 on the list is the low seat height, which was actually pretty important for me. Being a beginner rider, I didn't want something that's sitting up so high I can't get both feet on the ground. And again, like I was saying before, the less things you have to worry about as a beginner, the better. So I believe the seat height is. I checked online. The publications differ on the spec, but it's either 30.7 inches or 30.9 inches. Either way, that is a very low seat height, lower than average for a naked bike. So it's really good. It gives you the confidence you need. You can put both feet down when you need to put both feet down. And yeah, it's very confidence inspiring. So that's another pro that I do like about this bike as a beginner. And finally, number 5 is the handling of this bike. Now, it is a little bit heavier in its class compared to its rivals. It's about, full of, oil and gas. It's about 417, 418 pounds, I believe, give or take. But to be honest with you, once you get going on the road, you don't really feel it. The most you're going to feel that weight is when you're here doing parking lot maneuvers. Then that's when, and that's for any bike. That's when you really feel the weight of a motorcycle. Once you get to a certain speed on the road, the weight doesn't really matter all that much. I'm not going to say it doesn't matter at all, but it doesn't really matter all that much once you get up to speed. So at speed, this bike feels very flickable. And because it's a naked bike, because you don't have, low clip-ons, you have good leverage up top here, which really gives you, confidence when turning the bike. So I think the handling's really good. I like it. It's fun. The few curvy roads I do find here in Florida, this bike handles them very well. So yeah, I think the handling's pretty good. But also take it with a grain of salt. I'm a new rider. This is my first bike. I have ridden other bikes. I've ridden the Aprilia RS660, Yamaha RS7, and Yamaha MT-09. But those were like very brief experiences. But nevertheless, I think the handling on this bike is more than acceptable for its class. Now we're on to the list of cons. And these cons are nitpicky, and again, this is all subjective. This is just, positives and negatives that I find. What's a positive to me might be a negative for someone else, and what might be a negative to me might be a positive to someone else. So, that being said, the first thing I'm going to mention on the cons, and again, this is what I mentioned in the pros, is the way the engine makes power. And you're going to ask me, why is that both a pro and a con if it's good for beginners and it's really easy to ride? The reason being is after a certain RPM, this thing just completely runs out of steam. I really don't know what the RPM is because, to be honest, I don't really look at the tachometer all that much. I just shift by feeling and listening to the bike. But I would say, I don't know, maybe above 7,000 RPM, I'm guessing, 8,000 RPM. But after a certain RPM, the power drops off dramatically, and that at that point, like, you're just kind of wasting gas and you're wasting time because you're not going anywhere any faster. So that is a con. This thing runs out of steam pretty early, unfortunately. Con number 2 is the gearing. And the gearing can be a pro as well, but for me, the gearing is pretty short. The gears that I mainly have problems with are first gear and sixth gear. First gear is so short, like by the time I get going from a red light, I pretty much already have to shift, which I don't like. And it's really annoying when you're taking a turn from a stop because you don't, shifting at that speed from at a turn at an angle it's just annoying. It's not something you really want to do. And this bike also doesn't have a slipper clutch, so you really have to be smooth with your throttle input and your clutch release, because there's no slipper clutch to help you out at all. I believe the slipper clutch was added in the 2019 and up models, but this 2017 model does not have the slipper clutch. So first gear, super short, and then sixth gear is super short as well. For me, sixth gear I feel like should be like the overdrive gear. If you're cruising on a highway, throw into six and let the RPMs, settle down at a comfortable level. But for me, when I'm doing like 70 miles an hour, I really can't tell much of a difference between fifth gear and sixth gear. The RPMs are still pretty high. So, yeah, con number 2 for me would be the gear ratios on this motorcycle. And con number 3, I actually just mentioned, and that's the lack of a slipper clutch. Yeah, that just makes shifting a little bit more difficult. Not difficult, but you really have to be more in tune with the bike, which can actually be a pro. You definitely improve your skills shifting. And that's just in general. The less rider aids you have, the more the skills placed back in the hands of the rider versus the motorcycle. So this motorcycle has no rider aids at all. It has no traction control, no rider modes, no slipper clutch, and not even ABS. I mean, this thing is as Stone Age as you can get, which is good, because it's kind of forced me to really understand the bike and grow into a better rider. Con number 4, for me at least, is going to be the headlight. The headlight looks good, but at night I don't find it very effective at all. In fact, I actually find it kind of terrifying. It might work, again, context, depending on where you are. If you live in a city or suburban area that's well lit at night, it may not be an issue, but I live pretty much in the country out in Florida, and lots of times the roads have zero lights or no one around you. At night, you really, really want well-functioning headlights, because there's a lot of wildlife that can cross the road at night, and you don't want any of that type of trouble in your life, especially when you're riding a motorcycle. So, for me, the number 4 con is going to be the headlights on the CB500F. And lastly, the last con, number 5, in my opinion, on the CB500F is the brakes. They're okay. They're adequate, they get the job done. But I've ridden, like I said earlier, I've ridden some of the more sporty, higher end, newer motorcycles. And after riding those and coming back to this, I'm like, you know what? These brakes are not as good as I initially thought they were. And yeah, that's going to do it, guys. Hopefully this video was helpful, especially to anyone that's considering this particular motorcycle, whether it's your first, your second, third bike. And if you have any additional questions on this bike, please drop them in the comments below, and I'll do my best to hopefully leave some helpful answers for you. So that's going to do it. Again, Happy New Year. Make 2025 a great freaking year. How about that? So until the next time, guys, peace.